Now, this is going to shock you. What the Liberals are trying to do is ram through their censorship bill C9. This is their so-called anti-hate bill, which the Minister of Justice admits will allow people to be criminally prosecuted for what they post online, bringing in UK-style tweet policing to Canada. The Liberals just want us to wave this through. They want us to give them a rubber stamp, a green light to make this law as quickly as possible, even though we have not had the opportunity to do the proper scrutiny of this bill that parliamentarians are supposed to be able to do.
Ms. Dillon has been very disrespectful to our
no,
guests
I'm not.
by suggesting
you have been disrespectful.
that they are
Your whole
not sophisticated enough to understand how parliamentary committees work.
Point
of order?
6.
Yes. I'd just like to point out that we have, and Mr. Lawton, what he's been going on about, and the Conservative filibuster continuing. I'd like to point out we have members of the very communities he is talking about who are sitting in the audience wanting this bill to go
Chair,
forward.
I have a point of order.
There are officials here who are ready to help us proceed with clause by clause.
It's not a
and
point of order.
everything he's
I can't
saying.
determine whether it's a point of order if I can't hear it, can I, Garnett?
But
so just park it for a second, and I'll get to you.
I think the folks in the audience are very sophisticated people.
Yeah,
I
you were
think
sitting in the back. You
have
don't
been
know.
parliamentary committees before.
That's
You were
enough.
sitting in the back. You
Mr. Chair, you chastened me for speaking during her point of order.
You still kept
you will
talking,
now
though.
chasten
So me
her
too, I'm going to do the same thing
Ms.
now.
Dillon,
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Oh, yeah.
What I do not support, and no Canadian who values freedom of expression could ever say they support this, is trying to cast a wider net on political expression that may be offensive, but is also what freedom of expression means. Again, freedom of expression does not exist for the benign. It does not exist for things that are not controversial. Freedom of expression protections exist precisely for things that are. And I look at how we have changed, how society has changed on so many social norms. There was a time when Tommy Douglas, who was a lion of socialism in Canada, a lion of the New Democrats, said in a prime ministerial debate that homosexuality was a mental illness. And that was a progressive view at the time. And now we have a situation in which we all realize the importance of equal rights for people of all sexual orientations. And this is something that shows how what is controversial in one era is a norm in another. And we only get there when we have the ability to engage in debate and discussion. And again, courts have reversed themselves as well. I mentioned Beverly McLaughlin. It was, about 30 years ago or so that the Supreme Court ruled there was no right to die by maid. And then you fast forward from the Rodriguez decision to the Carter decision, and the court has a different view because norms change over time. So we should not be stymieing debate and discussion when that is arguably the most important freedom and liberty that we have in this country. Where we go from there is that if we do not take a stand now, an unequivocal stand, and draw our line in the sand and defend freedom of expression, we are going to allow a government that has shown a reckless disregard for civil liberties to offer more unchecked power. These erosions happen gradually, but they are very difficult to reclaim. And I note what was argued by Christine Van Geyn of the Canadian Constitution Foundation, which I mentioned her testimony earlier, but it isn't just that more people will be charged under Section 319 or potentially under the Canadian Human Rights Act or potentially under the Canadian Labour Code. My colleague Mr. Baber has pointed this out, the incredible risk of applying this definition to all federal statutes. So that is in and of itself quite interesting. But again, this is not a case where we should ever put the power to government and just hope that they won't abuse it. I believe it was Maya Angelou who said, when people show you who they are, believe them. The Liberal government has showed us who they are time and time again, including with the Emergencies Act. And it's interesting when you look at artistic freedom, some of the most vocal critics of the Online Harms Act when it came up were people on the left. Margaret Atwood, who I put up there right with the BC Civil Liberties Association. I don't think anyone has ever confused Margaret Atwood with being a conservative. If she were ever to run for office, I do not believe I would be sitting anywhere near her on our side of the aisle. But Margaret Atwood, she understands a thing or two about authoritarianism. She wrote The Handmaid's Tale, a book which was adopted into a TV series, which I believe they filmed in Cambridge, which is the riding held by my colleague Connie Cody. And The Handmaid's Tale shows an extreme example of what happens when an authoritarian state expands its power. And as we saw in that, it did not happen immediately. It happened gradually. So we have to be very careful about things that look like they are inconsequential, things that look like they are benign, but actually are not. And I go to our point on
of order?
6.
Yes. I'd just like to point out that we have, and Mr. Lawton, what he's been going on about, and the conservative filibuster continuing. I'd like to point out
order,
we have
Chair.
members of
Point
the
of order,
very
Chair.
communities he is talking about who are sitting in
order,
the
Chair.
audience wanting this bill to go
Chair, I have a
forward.
point of
There
order.
are
This is not a
officials
point of
here
order.
who are
But it's not
ready
a point
to
of
help
order.
us proceed with clause by clause.
It's not a
and
point of order.
everything
I
he's
can't
saying.
determine whether it's a point of order if I can't hear it, can I? Garnett?
But
So just park it for a second and I'll get to you. Ms. Dillon.
So out of respect for our audience members who are here wanting this bill to go forward and they don't comprehend what is going on right now, it's a conservative filibuster to block the clause by clause so this bill can go forward. The very organizations and communities you mentioned, they're all in the audience. Look at you. They're all here, left their work, left whatever, to come and assist this committee to see this bill move forward. We have officials here who would like to see the clause by clause go forward. Please, if we can do that. I think this is going nowhere, what you're saying. You're just having circular reasoning. So can we move forward, please, with clause by clause?
Ms.
Thank you.
Dillon, and Mr. Genuis, you'll have a point. If I don't answer, if my ruling is not what you think it should be, you can ask me to change that. Ms. Dillon, that's not a point of order technically. I do realize there are witnesses here that were here and came in to listen to clause by clause, and we should as a committee be respectful of that. But again, that's not, while your point was respectful, it's not a point of order. So. Mr. Genuis, you want to say anything about that?
But, Chair, as you correctly said, it's not a point of order, but also Ms. Dillon has really insulted our guests today by claiming they don't know what's going on. She's also imputed opinions about the legislation to the officials, claiming
No, they
want
don't understand
something or
why
other
we're not
to
moving
happen.
forward. That's why they're here, okay?
Ms. Dillon,
You're just making things up as you go along.
I think the folks in the audience are very sophisticated people.
Yeah,
I
you were
think
sitting in the back, you
have
don't
been
know.
in parliamentary
Yeah.
committees before.
That's
You were
enough.
sitting in the back.
Mr. Chair,
chatting.
you chastened me for speaking during her point of order. I
You still
suspect
kept
you will now
talking, though.
chasten
So me
her
too, I'm going to do the same thing
Ms.
now.
Dillon, that's enough.
for doing the same.
Just finish your point, but
Yeah. Well,
Please.
as I was saying, just Ms. Dillon has been very disrespectful to our
No,
guests
I'm
by
not. You have
suggesting
been
that
disrespectful.
they
Your
are
whole
not
conservative
sophisticated enough
caucus
to
right here
understand
has
how
been very
parliamentary committees work. She's also suggested that they want certain things or don't want certain things. I don't think that's fair to them, and I don't think that's fair to the officials. The officials are here to do their job, which is to answer questions. They're not here to express
Not here to be
opinions.
abused.
So I think Ms. Dillon should apologize for the comments she made about the guests that are here at the committee.
thank you, Mr. Genuis. We'll cede the floor back to Mr. Lawton.
Thank you. And again, it was quite interesting hearing Ms. Dillon really use people as political props for that point that she was making. There are a number of
Point of order,
stakeholders.
that's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to show respect to our audience members who are here. I just
That's not a point of order. That's a
acknowledge
matter of
them
debate,
being
Chair.
here.
Look, the reason I bring that up is because there are members of a variety of communities here who I have not actually seen testify before this committee. And if these witnesses are so invested in C9, and I hope that they are, I hope all of us are, why have the Liberals not allowed us to do a proper study on C9, bring these people here who have not testified, which includes some of them, I can't see everyone over there, bring them to testify as witnesses and have the consultation on Bill C9 that we were supposed to have? This is precisely the point that we're discussing. And now the Liberals have invited all of these stakeholders for a clause by clause that they themselves forced before this committee finished the work it needed to do on C9. A bill which, while I definitely understand the circumstances that have led to it, a bill which has, I don't actually believe I have gotten a single constituent email urging the speedy passage of C9. I have had emails from more constituents than I can count, and I'm just talking about as an MP. I'm not talking about emails I've received as a member of the Justice Committee from constituents saying you must stop this bill. And the reason is because they understand what the Liberal members choose not to, which is that this bill will attack freedom of expression. And when you want to force something through quickly that does not have cross-party consensus, it's only because you are concerned about what will be revealed when proper scrutiny and study is actually at stake. And I believe if you go back to the 3 meetings we were allowed to have on C9, what you would hear from our witnesses is that there was very little support for what C9 has actually done. And even witnesses who were conceptually supportive of C9 believed it needed changes that are so fundamental they would alter what the bill actually is. So if the Liberals believe that this bill needs to be passed immediately, they have to replace it with a bill that does not do what has been so alarming to people, again, from left and right, from religious groups representing a range of religions. You know, you have members of the Indian community that feel very personally targeted by this bill and feel that their religious freedom will not be protected. In the course of debate, as we've talked about changing the criminal code, by the way, changing the criminal code even beyond what C9 seeks to change, to remove the religious defense under Section 319. And in the course of discussion, when people see a member of Parliament refer to verses of Scripture as potentially hateful, all of a sudden religious people in Canada feel like they're going to be targeted by Bill C9. So I don't understand how the government believes that a bill designed to attack hate against religion can do so by inciting hate against religion, and more importantly, against people who themselves are religious, which is the majority of Canadians.
As a European, I am a European, actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm Irish citizen. Yeah, so there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European.
WTF.
Here, here. How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein? More than just elbows.
And as the most European of the non-European countries.
Being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought
to avoid. What possible
conflict
would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Come on, Fiona.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.